Hello, and welcome to another installment of Adventures in Aberrant Psychology. This time I'm just going to do three stories. And I'll start with the one that's left its impression most recently. Guy in his mid-60s, and he was what I call the intensive care ones, where you get someone who has dementia, and they typically do the same things as every other patient. Number one thing they want to do is get out of bed. They start with their feet. They try to put their feet out of the bed, and then you have to keep on putting the feet back into the bed. Back into the bed. Every 5 minutes sometimes. And I had one of those, and you have to tell them, no, it's not time to wake up yet. It's bedtime. It's midnight. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, And for some reason, words like midnight and 2 o'clock in the morning do kind of reach them sometimes. It's just 5 minutes later they forget. You make sense for 1 minute. And you can get them to put the covers back on, tuck them in, get everything quiet in the room, turn the lights out and everything, and then covers come off 5 minutes later. You're like, what are you doing? That's my favorite question to ask in that situation is, what are you doing? What are we doing? Because it stuns them just to ask them what they're doing. Because many times they can't explain what they're doing. They don't even know why they want to get up. They just want to get up. So asking them, what are you doing? It really, it's effective at just halting what they're doing right where it is, and then, you can go from there. I'd like to ask, are you trying to go to the bathroom? Are you just stretching? Do you want to put your legs down so I can put your covers back on and tuck you back in because it's bedtime? This last one that I had, he did some odd things. He really liked to play with things in his hands and really study them. Like he was gonna figure them out, but not like a Rubik's cube, not like a cell phone. This is more like a stress ball and a brush. So, at one point, he was actually using the brush on the stress ball. And that was interesting. He used the brush on his own walker. Brushed as if the walker was tarnished or dirty or something, but it wasn't. But he was just manipulating with his hands, figuring stuff out. Sometimes you can get a different response out of them at different times of the day. It's called sundowning. Towards the end of the day, you don't get as good responses out of them as you do after they've slept and then they wake up. And this was the case with him. And sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's bad, because when they have a lot of energy, they're harder to handle. And I'm always wanting to order a breakfast with a lot of variety in a case like this, because it's easier when there's more stuff to manipulate that's okay to touch, rather than playing with phones or other things that I wish I could just take out of a hospital room, but I can't. Um, I don't even like when someone with dementia plays with their walker because there's little pinch points on the walker that you could get your hand hurt, you know. The whole time, though, with this guy, I was just thinking, see, kids, don't drink. You know, don't be an alcoholic. Don't end up like this. There were moments where I just imagined what he might be thinking in his head because he wasn't very good at explaining what he was thinking. He tried to speak, but he couldn't hold a conversation that was coherent for more than 2 sentences. But I got the feeling that he wanted to know that there was going to be something else in his life after this. Like, he's in this hospital room and he's going to be put into a rehabilitation center, and then he's going to have, you know, a couple years to enjoy. That's what I got the feeling that he wanted out of some of the mumble that he would put out. And I also got the feeling like he was feeling like he lived at our whim. And at any moment, if he went to sleep, we could just decide that he didn't deserve to live anymore. There was like a real sense of fright in this guy. You know? So, kids, don't drink and become an alcoholic and end up like that. Had to change his Depends 5 times. Pushing a nurse call button. Hey, can I get a CNA to help roll his body to the side so I can get this diaper on? You know? It's the CNA's job, but, you know, I just don't like the loss of dignity when someone's sitting around in a soggy diaper waiting for a CNA to, you know, come around on their rotation when they feel like it, you know. Especially with someone I can direct to do most of it, like take it off and, you know, all that. Next patient, other side of the spectrum of age, early 20s, prior to coming into the hospital, and I only know this secondhand. She was in the back of a cop car outside of a bar, and she kicked out the back window of the cop car and slipped one of her handcuffs and was using the hand that still had the handcuff dangling from it as a weapon against officers who tried to stop her, and then she got tased and then put on a paramedic's gurney and then brought to my hospital, where she was still hysterical and she had to be restrained. And then a nurse goes in and decides, hey, her restraints are a little tight. Now, let me back up. This patient was in the back of a cop car and was able to slip her handcuffs and kick out the window of a cop car. So, a couple hours later, when somebody, you know, orders that restraints be loosened, of course I'm keeping an eye on this patient's cameras, and just like I suspected, she was able to uh, get herself into a position where she could get a really good pull to slip one of her restraints, and she was going for the other restraints to try to undo them. Unfortunately, she did not realize that hard restraints in an emergency room have locking mechanisms to them that use the same key as a handcuff key, but you're not getting out of them like it's Velcro. Okay, you're not going to find the strap to pull up. There's no. It's locked, and so you either have to slip all of them the way she slipped the one, or you have to have the key. So it was easy to get in there and grab her free arm and hold it down and wait for assistance and, put the restraint back on. And of course, she wanted to tell us all that we were violating her rights and that we were going to be sued, and she wanted to know my name, at which point I just take my badge and, show, here's my picture, here's my name, there you go. There's like 1,000 people in this city that are going to sue me, or so they say in the moment. Never happens because everybody knows they're acting a fool, and that's the reason why they're restrained. Everybody knows the reason why they're restrained. They just pretend like they don't because they will say anything to get out of it. They will say and do anything except for be a good patient and just settle down. And she squirmed for hours and was given many different types of sedatives. And the cocktail she was given, I was surprised that she was able to resist for as long as she did. Then she goes to sleep and wakes up 2 hours later and tells the nurse that she needs to go to the bathroom. But because she was, asleep for 2 hours, when she came back from the restroom, we were like, okay, well, if you can be good, we're not going to put these restraints on. That's the trick, people. If you want the restraints off, just go to sleep. That's it. That's the only answer. Everything else, like screaming, telling me you're going to sue me, anything but just going to sleep is not the answer. And the longer you wait to go to sleep and do all those other things that you think is going to work, the longer it takes. This person could have been out of the restraints in an hour, and instead it took 10 hours. 10 of a lot of fighting against herself, pulling at restraints that weren't going anywhere. Yeah. Last story, and this is probably going to piss off a lot of people. It's going to reach into the anger center of your brain and light it up. This is a story of Mike coming across an ethical dilemma and what Mike did. Patient comes in and is not my patient, but is on an ETOH hold. That's drunk hold, for those of you who haven't been following along. She's drunk. She blew over 400. The legal limit is 0.08. Normally somebody who blows 0.4 and above, if they have no tolerance, they are passed out. But this person was not. Was brought in by a friend who was worried She was 7 months pregnant and blowing over 400. And also reported that she drinks every day. And that's normally the case with people who blow that high in my emergency room. They didn't get all that alcohol in their system in one day. They're always drunk. There's always alcohol in their system. If they're walking at 400, they have quite the tolerance. But someone who is pregnant should not be drinking at all. If you read some study that said that certain types of red wine, if it's like one glass, it could actually be beneficial for your kid, and you're drinking that actually for the benefit and not just to rationalize your drinking while you're pregnant. If you're drinking for that benefit, I'm not talking about you. Alright? I'm not talking about just one drink. I'm talking about social drinking. I'm talking about I would prefer abstinence for every pregnant person. Just don't drink alcohol. But especially don't be a drunk and decide to add to the gene pool, because fetal alcohol syndrome is real and doesn't take a doctor to figure out that this baby is going to have it. So here's the dilemma. There's privacy laws, and if you come to an emergency room to get help for something, she didn't get help. She didn't come for help for her alcoholism. It was her friend brought her because she was passed out. But if you do come to a hospital for help for something, you have this expectation that they're not going to try to turn you into the justice system. That's why when you piss hot for methamphetamines and marijuana and all that stuff, it doesn't get reported to the cops so that they can come arrest you. No, they treat you. There's privacy laws. But, on the other hand, in this situation, there is a duty to protect and a duty to warn, and there are exceptions to privacy laws like HIPAA in instances such as child abuse and elderly abuse, and if you think that somebody is making specific threats against another person, where they're like, I have a gun in my car and I'm going to go drive over to their house. You have a duty to warn that person. Even though, you work in an environment with privacy laws, and the ethical dilemma was, this woman is hurting a child. She's going to make this child get born with fetal alcohol syndrome. But it's different because she's pregnant and the baby is inside of her. It's one thing to see child abuse, like to see a woman slap her 2-year-old across the face. That you could report definitely in an emergency room setting if you see the mom's in the room beating her kid. You can call up social services and say, hey, I just saw her hit her kid. But when it's a prenatal thing, when it's still in the womb, there is a gray area. I mean, we don't call up social services if somebody wants an abortion. They're going to kill that kid. But, we don't feel like it's going to be a kid because the death, makes it not get born, But in this case, all of the things that are happening in the womb are going to happen to a child that ostensibly is going to get given birth to, you know, so it's going to have to live with what's happening, you know. So it's weird that most of us in that setting are okay with reproductive choice and abortion and all that. And yet, we see this lady come in knowing that she's pregnant and knowingly drinking that much. You know, drinking is one thing. Drinking that much is like every person in the ER wanted to kill her. Every one of them wanted to take her out back and smack her upside the head repeatedly. You know, everyone was angry and upset. And so we were discussing what could we possibly do? And people with degrees far higher than mine and certifications far higher than mine said, there really isn't anything. But some of us disagree. And I looked on the internet, pulled up a little window behind my charting, and I was searching. Is there an exception for reporting a pregnant woman for being drunk and hurting the fetus? Couldn't find anything. I think my search was probably very hurried anyway, because I was like, well, they're gonna probably make this woman clinically sober. I think we've gone over that, where they don't have to wait till they're legally sober. They can just say, well, you can walk and talk and you can get in a cab, so we don't see anything wrong. You know? So, discharged. You know, I felt like this woman was about to leave, and we should probably figure this out while she's here. But I didn't find anything, and so the one thing I did find was a hotline for reporting people. It was 1-800-CO, the number 4, and kids. And I called them up, and I just said, I have a professional question, because I can't figure out whether or not we are, the people that are taking care of this woman are bound by HIPAA privacy laws or not. You know, because there is a duty to protect children who are getting abused, but this is prenatal. So, the person on the phone, he recognized this situation because it's happened before. And he told me that it's a gray area, and their hotline is confidential. And that's all he could really tell me, you know. He said that people have reported other people for that before, and there has been a follow-up. And so I told them I'd call back after I got more information, and then they called me back the next day, and after giving a couple more details, I said, oh no, somebody else already called. And it was probably because I was sharing the website flyer for 1-800-CO for kids, you know. I was like, we could just ask them the questions, you know, like, can we? Because we can't find the answer. But at least I have the comfort of knowing that a social worker is on her scent. You know, I don't know if it works anything like tainted evidence for the police. You know, the fruit of the poison tree thing. I don't know if she can take a report that should have been covered by privacy laws and then do something about that, or does she have to just investigate and come up with another reason? I don't know. I don't know if social workers work that way. I just feel better knowing that someone's going to follow up somehow, you know? Because that's bullshit. Drinking when you're pregnant is bullshit. That's that's enough to make an entire department of a hospital see red.